Hey everyone, so I'm back with the second of my Bentley Little novel reviews, and today I'm talking about The Store, which was published in 1996. So, as I said in my introduction video to Bentley Little's work, he basically has two very broad types of novel. The first type are social satires, where Little will take some aspect of a capitalist bureaucracy and he'll caricature its foibles and annoyances. They're basically the exact same novel written over and over again, just with a different instrument of government or various other powers that be acting as the villain. So it can be an insurance agency or a housing association, an elite and elitist academy, the mail service, and in this case, a supermarket chain. The second category of his books is everything else, and they're roughly evenly split between the social satires and the just outright horror stuff. Today's review is of the most perfect example of the first type. In my opinion, the community decimating supermarket conglomerate is the best possible villain for Bentley Little's themes. I think this is where he reached the apex of what he was trying to do with all of those social satire books. I'd even go so far to say that if once you've read this book, all the other books in category one, so the policy, the association, the academy, you'll probably still have some fun reading them, but you don't, strictly speaking, need to read them because the store does it as well as he ever does it, which is to say very well in my opinion. The book does have its detractors. There are a fair few one-star reviews on it on places like Amazon and Goodreads from people who take issue with many of the things I'm going to be taking issue with in this review, but in my opinion the good parts of this book are very, very good and the bad parts really aren't all that bad. So let me get on with it then. Firstly, the cover art, which is by Simon Dewey. There it is. Now, I talked about Simon Dewey in my introduction video to Bentley Little's books, the last video I published on here. I like him as an artist. He's different to, you remember when I did the Richard Lehman series, I would often talk about Steve Crisp. And Steve Crisp's cover art is fantastic, but he was always very, very faithful to the novel. He would never include details in his artwork that wasn't actually in the novel. Simon Dewey is a little bit different. He sometimes will put his own little interpretative spin on the images. And this is a good example because here the main part of this image is this massive cockroach. And there are no cockroaches in this book. But the cockroach is one of the most potent symbols of an infestation, which is the theme of this book, the theme of the store infesting this community. So that's a good example of what you get with Simon Dewey. He will now and again put his own little, his theories of what the book is really about into his artwork, and it can be enjoyable looking for those little images and details in the images. Anyway, right, so there's the cover art, and I do like it. Because this is a hardback, I don't want to go, it's unwieldy to read the synopsis, but I can summarize it for you very, very quickly. There's this supermarket chain called simply The Store, and they build a new supermarket in this small Arizona town, and bit by bit the supermarket starts to take over all aspects of the community, from its police to its libraries to its education system, and so yeah, I mean it's a standard Bentley Little category A novel in terms of it's the social satire stuff. So let me get on with the review then. So the first half of this review, I'm going to avoid spoilers, but towards the end, I'm going to be giving away one or two major plot points and spoilers, so be ready for that. I will very clearly warn you when those are coming if you haven't read the book and you plan to. Because this is a satirical novel, let me get the politics of this book out of the way first so I can focus on the story, which is far more important. Bentley Little's biggest fear, outside of obvious stuff like illness and death, seems to be my own biggest fear, and that's the loss of personal freedom. And in his Category 1 books, he looks at all the different ways in which that can happen, from the small and petty, like the association, to the very significant, as in here, the store. Although a lot of this book's ideas are simple and obvious, they're nevertheless right and true. And I want to start by giving some of the small details of this book that I appreciated very much. Firstly, the main hero of the book is called Bill and his wife is called Ginny. They have two daughters, Samantha and Shannon. And I like how Ginny, the wife, at one point in the novel, she notes the place, the role of the shopping center in Western life. At one point she reminisces about her first date with her future husband Bill that took place at the mall. The shopping centre is often the focal point of a town and one of its main economic driving forces. And one of the best written sequences in this book is the grand opening of the store. And Ginny notices how the light outside the windows seems less natural, less real than the synthetic light inside the store. Now, it's a really small thing, but I just thought it was a very neat little way of showing how supermarkets attempt to welcome people in and keep them in by creating this kind of, I don't know, heightened reality, like toy shops for adults, where it's the outside world that seems mundane and plastic, and everything inside is fresh and new and, stuff that you really want. Another thing I liked about this book is that even though the process is sped up, I think Little got right the order in which society has become firstly complacent and then radicalized. When the store first comes to town, it comes in the guise of a friend of the poor and of the downtrodden, but in fact all it really seeks to do is exploit them for its own purposes. And I like how Little shows that one of the first things these kind of oligarchical structures do is they take over the media so that it can control the flow of information. We see that now in our world, with billionaires buying up newspapers and TV stations. It's really the first thing they purchase. They don't do that to keep people informed about genocide in Burkina Faso. They do it to regulate what people are exposed to and what they want to therefore buy. At the end of the novel, the main hero, Bill, he asks the villain, Newman King, why he does all of this. Why is he set up with all these supermarkets just to take over towns and control them? And Newman King's answer could be seen and has been seen, according to some one-star reviews, as anticlimactic. But I personally found it to be the only possible answer that made sense. And his answer is, he does it for the thrill of having the power to control what people buy, what they wear, what they listen to, what they read, what they think, believe, want, love, all of those things. If you're a megalomaniac, what further motive do you need to do any of this stuff? So yeah, let me end the political part of this now by just saying that, bearing in mind this is popular fiction, he's not trying to write the next Orwellian masterpiece here, but I do think Little did a good job of showing how people can be transformed into mindless fascists through the means of being drip-fed a steady diet of fear, paranoia, and the threat of having things they've been convinced they need taken from them. Even though all of this is taken to massively over-the-top caricature levels, I think it's still a valid message that this book has. Right, though, the story and the characters. Far more important than any politics is the story and the characters. The characters, not much to say, because they're all out of Bentley Little Category 1 central casting novels. The main hero is a guy in his late 30s, early 40s. He's married to a woman who is mostly passive and unimportant to the story. He's got kids, he's got a mundane job, he loves classic rock music, and he often gives his thoughts on classic rock music. He's anti-establishment, anti-organized religion, anti-authoritarianism, and he also gives his views on those things throughout the book, often in ways that disrupt the story a bit. He is the first to see the hook through the bait, and he gathers to himself a small band of fellow fighters who, one by one, generally they get killed. I can't say Bentley Little is bad at characterization, but I can say that he's just very limited in the types of characters he's able to depict. His heroes are basically variations of himself, and his villains are all the same power-mad bureaucrat. So much for the characters, but the story, I don't know, I really enjoyed this story. I like the pace of it. Some people have criticized the pace, said it's very slow, it takes a long time to get going, but no, I thought it built a community and built atmosphere very well. I think there are episodes here that are legitimately creepy. As disturbing as they could be, I liked the scenes involving the two daughters and their experiences working at the store and how it affected their family life. So the story I enjoyed a lot, and it's a rare example of when I think Bentley Little kind of stuck the ending, even though the ending is incredibly rushed. It's only at page 360 that Bill hatches his plan for how to beat the store, and by page 375 the book is over. That's including an epilogue. So it builds up and up and up to page 360, and then in 10 pages the whole thing is resolved very quickly. But endings are not a strong point of Bentley Little, so I was reasonably satisfied with the way that he finished it. Turning to the negatives, I want to highlight 3 passages around the middle of the book, which I think showcase what's great about Bentley Little, but also what can be maddening. I don't think I can, because it's just too unwieldy to do it with a hardback, but there's one scene where the supermarket employs these young people called directors, and their job is to accost people at the door of the supermarket and then show them immediately to the stuff that they want to buy. Through some kind of mind reading powers, they're able to know exactly what each person wants. And these director people are very scary characters. They're very intimidating. And at one point, one of them accosts Ginny, the wife. And he's being very, very intimidating to her. And she manages to get away from him. And after she flees him, she sees all the crazy stuff that the store sells. There are like calendars which show hardcore pornographic images. There's a priest guy who's asking one of the directors where he can find child porn videotapes and snuff films, and he's shown to them. And all this really crazy stuff, but she finally gets away from him. And I think I do actually have to try and find the passage. I remember it's page 216. So yeah, it's a very tense scene, very frightening, very intimidating. This director guy, he comes to her, he says, "Come with me, Mrs. Davis." No, Mrs. Davis, Street, that's a friend of Ginny, glared over her shoulder at the director. "Go help someone else. I am here to help Mrs. Davis. She doesn't want your help. Please leave." And it's very frightening. And then this director boy lowered his voice. "You're making a mistake, Mrs. Davis." And then, but he finally does walk away. And then Ginny, she just says, "That's another thing I hate about this place. The employees are so damn pushy." That's what I mean when I say that Bentley Little can be great, but also infuriating, because that's a very tense scene, and there's so much wrong with it. There's so much wrong going on here. Child porn being sold in a supermarket, hardcore pornography calendars, all kinds of illegal stuff is being sold. The people who work there are obviously threatening you and your life, and your big takeaway from it is, well, these people are a little bit pushy. That's one of the annoying things about Bentley Little sometimes, that no matter how insane stuff gets, characters just kind of blow it off. They just ignore it. Another example of that is, I think, for me, the scariest sequence in the book happens when the family finally decides to leave town for a few days. And they drive out to another town called Flagstaff. And when they arrive there, or on the way, I don't remember, but they come to another town, and it's been totally taken over by the store. There's people walking around in store uniforms that look like Nazi SS outfits. The store is taken over, even the gas station, so the family can't leave even though they want to. They're forced to spend the night in the motel there. All the people who work in the motel are store employees, and everyone is just like a mindless zombie. It's an incredibly frightening, creepy image that he has depicted. But again, they're in the motel, and I made a note, it's 260. And despite all of that crazy stuff, they're lying in bed feeling a little bit terrified. And Ginny says, "I'm scared." And her husband says, "I know," he told her. He was scared too, although he told himself logically that there was no real reason to be. What on earth are you talking about? No real reason to be scared. Your life and the life of your family have been directly threatened. That's why you've skipped town. Your friends are dropping dead left, right, and center, or at least disappearing. All the area around your town has been taken over, and everyone has been turned into these brainless drones. And you want to say that there's nothing logically to be afraid of? Yeah, so that's one of the annoying things about Bentley Little. It's what's great about him, but what's a bit irritating about him, that he will set up such a creepy scene, but then the characters will just not have any kind of normal, realistic reaction to it. What else can I say about the negatives? There's a section towards the end when Bill is offered a job. Isn't a spoiler really, because it's blindingly obvious that it's leading up to this. Billy's offered a job as a supermarket as one of the managers by Newman King, the villain, and takes it. And that's kind of Bentley Little's condensed version of George Orwell's Animal Farm, where we see Bill suddenly change from this kind of, he's anti-store to being pro-store. And it was very simplistically done and very rushed. In the course of 10 pages, he went from one extreme to the other. So you could argue with that it wasn't very realistic. some of the minor negatives, some things just aren't resolved all that well. There are some characters called night managers. We never really find out who they are or how they're created. We don't find out what the nature and origin of Newman King is. That would have been good to know, because I really feel the book missed a good chance to go into more detail about that. There are some very intriguing hints about this character and the first store he ever set up. I think the prologue is that first store. Could be wrong. If you've read the book, let me know if you agree that the incident that takes place in the prologue is the first store in Texas. But yeah, I mean, none of this is really tied up or resolved. It does have a very rushed ending. Right, spoiler time. I had said that there's going to be some major plot point and spoiler coming up, and this is it. So if you haven't read the book and you want to, you plan to, turn off this review now, because here it comes. There is a detail in this book where Newman King is seeking to blackmail Bill into not going through with his plan to take down the store. And one of the ways he does this is he sends Bill's oldest daughter, Samantha, into his hotel room to have sex with him. Bill doesn't know, of course, it's his daughter. He's very sleepy and it's very dark at the time. He thinks it's a prostitute, but it's his daughter. And they filmed this incident so that they can keep him in line. Now, this is where things don't make any sense, because when Bill finds out that Newman King is planning to blackmail him with this information, he decides to call his bluff and tell Ginny that he had sex with another woman. But he doesn't tell her it was the daughter, because he figures she'll probably forgive me if she thinks I was out of my mind and I had sex with what I thought was a prostitute. But if she finds out I had sex with our oldest daughter, that's the end of my marriage. So he tells her that he cheated on her, but he doesn't tell her the detail of the fact that it was Samantha, the daughter. That makes zero sense to me, because the stuff that Newman King was blackmailing you with was the thing that he still can blackmail you with. He's got videotape evidence. And yeah, okay, they keep sending videotapes to the house, but they keep destroying them. But I'm pretty sure Newman King could find a way to let your wife know that you had sex with your daughter. It was really weird. It was such a bizarre thing that Bentley Little threw in there. Why did he decide to tell his wife about his infidelity? He gained nothing by doing that. If you're not going to come clean completely, then he's still got a hold over you. Newman King still has a complete hold over you. Right, well anyway, that was the major plot point. Other than that, I mean, most people found that very icky. I found that to be a pretty cool episode, that thing with Samantha in the room. As sick as it is, I thought it was a suitably sick thing to do from Newman King to keep Bill in line. I just didn't like how Bill ended up confessing to half of it. But all right, so I think that's going to do it for this. It's been a long video, 17 minutes, but this is the first Bentley Little book I ever read about 20 years ago as a teenager. Very interesting to return to it. You know a book's good when, even after a break of 2 decades, certain scenes come back to you immediately when you read them, and they you recall exactly reading them the first time around. So I recommend this book highly. Some people don't and won't, but I do, because I think that it's almost as good as he gets. I think there are 1 or 2 books which I could say are better than this in his bibliography, but I don't think he would ever quite nail this type of thing that he was trying to do as well as he does here, these social satire books. This is probably the best of his Category 1 books, so it gets a very hearty recommendation. Right, that is going to do it for now. I'll be back soon with another Bentley Little book, but then after that one, I'm going to take a little break and read somebody else, because like I said in my introduction, I cannot binge read this guy. It's just too samey, too similar. Got to take a break sometimes. Thank you everyone for watching this, if you did watch it to this point, and I'll be back soon. Until then, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.